NAACP members, friends, and guests, welcome to the 113th NAACP National Convention Youth in College Public Mass Meeting. Coming to the stage is your Region 1 National U Work Committee appointee, Terry Hughes.
Hello, everyone. Can you all bow your heads or do whatever you are comfortable with for a word of prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, our Creator, we come to you as humble as we know how, thanking you for this convention, thanking you for an opportunity to elevate in our Blackness. Lord, we just ask right now that you come into this place and give us the courage to do the radical work that you are calling us to do. In your name, amen. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage spoken word artists Sierra, Jive, Cece Gordon, and Tyree.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can y'all hear me okay? Yes, beautiful. How y'all doing? Beautiful. I want to just quickly introduce someone who's going to be coming on stage. Can we give a round of applause for X, who will be accompanying us? I'm a resurrected dialect, a mosaic tongue. I was found overboard swimming in an ocean floor, by which I mean I'm deadly. Biblical locust, hungry for your firstborn sons. And you have no words for this kind of reckoning, and I can't dumb it down for you. By which I mean my name is a spell to conjure the clicks and cadence of tribes that once subsided, could see anything is a Mississippi march waiting to happen again and again and again. And I am honest, by which I mean I will wreak havoc on forefathers and fickle men. Talk about the lives I've lived in this here body, about Stono, Nat, Toussaint, Herbert, Gabriel, Cujo, words, weapons, waters too little to drown our griot. See, that is what is forgotten, that the griot lives, ascends into a new tongue, never sorry for existing in a world unrecognizable by your alphabet. Too rudimentary for the likes of me, Mammy, Jezebel, Sapphire, and you forget I'm a gladiolus, by which I mean I grow long and wide in dirt and still have the audacity to glisten like there was nothing left but a mutiny at my thighs, begging for it to be over, by which I mean the flag, free of blood but black, yes, black, like the cliche of berries in a grandma's gospel and the last slave ship that ascended upon yesterday. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Ashe.
Dear God, when I was a little girl, I used to hate my hands. They were short, stubby, and wide. Plus, the softness was always questionable. But after further deliberation, I realized that I had my grandmother's hands and she is a fighter. So when I said, Grandma, why are my hands made like this? She said, honey child, your hands were made to capture dreams, strong enough to headlock and hold them high. These hands are God's bullets, and they have the power to shoot down galaxies and reconstruct mindsets with your anointing. For the sky is not the limit for you, and we were never created to click with safety, so cock back and reload those lyrical flows. Pull that poetic trigger and battle those demons for your throne, for you are a fighter, dear God. When I was a teenager, I used to despise my mouth. It had a mind of its own, and it used to get me in trouble all the time. But after one of my notorious butt whoopings, my mother kindly looked upon my tear-stained face and said, you have a smart mouth just like me. Think, my child. Think before you speak, because the tongue is powerful. So choose your words wisely. For if you ever speak foul, those words will clip your wings, and my child, you were never destined to fly sideways, so smile as you inhale the attacks of your foes. Breathe and exhale the lines that silence their wrongs. Go harder, but remember, before you do so, never swallow but spit. Never swallow but spit. Never swallow but spit. Fiery truths to combat what they don't know, for ignorance is no longer bliss. So my child, please remember this. You were never destined to fly sideways in that pit, so cock back and reload those bullets. So you are so fly upright over the heads of those who doubt you. Feed them, for they are hungry, my child, and make them eat your words. Food for thought.
How y'all doing? Can we get a little bit more energy? How we doing? There we go. We love that. Thank you. I'm going to share this last piece with you all. It is near and dear to my heart. This poem is in honor of Fannie Lou Hamer. Do we know who that is? Can we get some applause for Fannie Lou Hamer? Ashe. So she laid a lot of the groundwork for a lot of the revolutions that we've been able to create, and also has just been somebody that I have studied and really loved in my own becoming. So I really hope y'all enjoy this piece. It's called Ain't Nobody Like Fannie. Ain't nobody like Fannie, like a hard fist that blooms, hands bruised from cotton picking, a mind that sings the blues, a heart that pumps and pumps and pumps for our rights, like a black woman, all brick house and weary, always keeps a gospel song loaded in her throat to help the people cope. Fannie is the kind of woman who survives a jumping in a jail cell by men that could have come from her womb, and still she will burst into a brawl for them. And did I mention, Fannie is the kind of woman who stares racism down like the barrel of a gun without ever flinching. Fannie is the kind of woman who believes in the power of the people, in the power of our voices, in the power of our choices. Fannie never got to be a mother. She underwent a surgery to remove a cyst when white doctors performed a forced sterilization. When they can't break our bones, they shoot for our spirits. They have always tried to break us, but here is a world of a woman who refused to back down. After being beaten, disrespected by presidents, Witnessing a lynching, there is nothing more that white supremacy can do. Can't nobody tell me nothing about Fannie, about her fight and her fury, how she was a spirit, reincarnated, a black goddess so loved and so hated, but in 1969, she created the Freedom Farm Cooperative that grew to over 680 acres of land, giving black folks land they could actually own. This from a woman who lived on a plantation. This from a woman denied the right to learn, to feel, to mourn. This, a woman, a legacy all on her own. She once said, "Sometimes it seems like to tell the truth today means to run the risk of being killed. But if I fall, I'll fall 5 feet 4 inches in the fight for freedom. I'm not backing down. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I gotta keep on walking, keep on talking. I'm building a brand new world. So will you join me? Will you join me? Will you join me? I'm building a brand new world. Ashe, thank y'all.
Now, to give the public mass introduction, we have your Youth and College National Director, Wisdom Cole.
What's going on, Youth and College Division? How y'all doing? I can't hear you. How y'all doing? Y'all been having fun? It's been a good convention so far. It's so good to see you. I want us to start into the tradition. You know, we haven't had convention in quite some time, and it's the first time that we've come together in a minute. And I always tell Derek Lewis to be ready. So I'm gonna need everybody to stand up with me. Everybody needs to stand up with me. And we're gonna get this public mass meeting started in the way that we normally do. Give me an N.
A, you got your A, you got your A.
Give me an A.
A, you got your A, you got your A.
Give me another A.
A, you got your A, you got your A.
Give me a C.
C, you got your C, you got your C.
Give me a P.
P, you got your P.
What's that spell? NAACP. Woo, woo. You gotta fight if you wanna be free. Woo, woo. You gotta give it all you got. Woo, woo. You gotta show what it's all about. Woo, woo. Fired up.
Fired up,
Fired up.
fired up,
Fired up. Oh wait, we gonna have to redo that. So when I say fired up, what do you say? Ready to go. Fired up.
ready to go,
Fired up.
ready to go,
Fired up.
ready to go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very excited that you all could be with us here for our public mass meeting. This is our opportunity really to have an open and honest conversation about the issues that are impacting young people in today's society. You've all been through a lot over the course of the past 2.5 years. And it's very important for us to really take the time to adjust and talk about the issues that are most important to us. But what's important in this conversation is really identifying the difference between a problem and an issue. Oftentimes we define problems as things that are broad, sweeping issues or broad, sweeping concepts. But today we want to hone in on the issues that are cross-cutting that we can address and come up with solutions. You know, when we were coming up with the concept for this public mass meeting, I really thought about how could we have a conversation when you are talking to young people just like yourselves, people who are fighting the struggle day in, day out. Folks who have been mobilizing each and every single day, even since the pandemic had started. But as we are crafting and searching for this new reality, we have to rethink our next steps forward. We need to go from mobilizing to organizing. We need to take the moments and turn them into movements. Y'all been having fun, right? I like that. I'm glad y'all been having fun. But now I need us to do some work. I need us to discuss the issues that are happening all across the nation. Because as the NAACP and the young leaders of this association, we have the opportunity to determine our path forward. The three key frameworks I want to leave with you before we get started in this meeting as you're thinking about the issues that are most important to you. One, is it going to result in real improvement in real people's lives? Two, is it going to give people a sense of their own power? And three, is it going to alter relationships of power both within the NAACP and outside? I'm very excited to have this conversation because we have some phenomenal and dynamic young people who've been a part of this convention, who've been a part of this association, and have been doing this work. And so please, step into your power. Ask those difficult questions. Bring up the tough conversations, because now is the time to have it. Thank you very much.
Here to introduce your moderator for the evening is your Region 3 board member, Kyra Mitchell.
Ooh, I'm glad I didn't wear heels, so I probably would have tripped. Okay. Welcome and good evening, youth and college leaders. I hope you have been enjoying the NAACP, the 113th annual convention. We have put a lot of work in, I know y'all seen us running around. So I hope y'all are enjoying it, and I hope this work is not in vain. My name is Kyra Mitchell, and I proudly serve as the youth board member from the greatest region. What region? Region 3, thank you. You heard them. Okay. I'm glad to see everyone here tonight traveling from far and wide and continuing the legacy passed down to us by our ancestors. We are gathered here this evening to discuss what issues are most important to us so that we can set a political agenda that truly fits us and reflects the hopes and dreams of Black youth all over America. Protests have always been the tool that young people use to fight back against violence and injustice in our community. This year alone, as a community, we have seen and experienced repeated acts of political, social, and economic violence. From mass shootings to continued police brutality, campus and community safety, as well as legislation designed to keep us from protesting or voting. In addition to inaccessible rising costs of higher education and rent, because my rent is high, as we continue to navigate the new world in which we live in, we must use this opportunity to organize for the change with new structures, tools, and tactics to create the counterculture for our future. I now have the privilege of introducing, and he told me backstage, so it is the truth, nobody get jealous, Chairman Leon Russell, and he also told me I was his favorite youth board member, so I just wanted to put that out there really quick. But now I would like to bring up our esteemed leader, Mr. Chairman Leon, Chairman Leon Russell. No, louder. Y'all need to stand up something, that's not enough energy. I said Chairman Leon Russell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Now let's see if you learned anything. Fired up. Fired up.
Ready to go.
All right, we're fired up and we're ready to go, Youth and College Division. So briefly, because there is a panel that comes after me, I want us to think about, first of all, my first thing tomorrow when I get an opportunity to get a microphone, it's going to be to fuss at everybody who is not in this room this evening. This is one of the most important parts of our national convention. Youth Night is an opportunity for our Youth and College Division to really display what the Youth and College Division is all about, and it's an opportunity for the rest of us to show support for the Youth and College Division. And sometimes, and I'm speaking to the choir, obviously, but sometimes you have to talk to the choir in order to get the rest of the congregation engaged. It is absolutely necessary that we as an association understand our obligation to support not just the Youth and College Division, but our youth councils and college chapters, our high school chapters across this country. Too many NAACP leaders see the Youth and College Division or youth councils or college chapters as totally separate entities that don't require any collaboration. That's absolutely false. That's absolutely false. First of all, we begin with our youth councils. How can we have effective youth councils without a good cadre of youth council advisors? And so for all of the youth council advisors in the house, stand up for me right now. Stand up, advisors. Now give them a round of applause that shows that you appreciate them. I have a certain advisor that I have known for many, many years. And she constantly reminds me that no real concerned parent is going to turn their children loose with just anybody. And so the position of youth advisor is exceedingly important, and we need to respect and deal with that the way that it needs to be dealt with. Youth advisors are an important cog in this machine that is the NAACP. Secondly, and I said I'm preaching to the choir, so y'all got to take the message back. It is absolutely imperative that our state conferences get their act together, reactivate, and charter youth councils and college chapters across their jurisdictions. There ought not be any region in this country, any state in this country, that doesn't have at least 20, 25 youth councils active and working at any time. And that's a really mealy-mouthed goal, quite frankly, because every branch, according to your Constitution, which is seldom read, is required to have a youth council anytime it gets 25 youth memberships. And I don't know any town in this country where there are not at least 25 youth who could form a youth council and be supported by their local unit. Now I'm preaching to folks who don't need to hear it because you're here, but I need you to take the message back. I need the message to go for. If they ain't here, I have to send out messengers. And you are those messengers. If you are to be successful youth councils, college chapters, you need the support of your adults. You need the support of a Hazel Dukes and the New York State Conference that never lets Karen Blanding do anything without full support of the state conference. You need this. That that needs to be the theme across every jurisdiction in this association. Now, let me bring it down a little bit. I'll stop preaching and say to you that we have much work to do. And indeed, one of the things that some of us argued about and wrote for when we revised the Constitution some years ago was whether or not we should use the word militant when we talked about youth. And we decided to use the word militant. But we give you a caveat. Your militancy should be governed by knowledge, strategy, and a results-oriented plan, and not just emotion. Do you hear me? You ought not govern what you get ready to do based on emotion, but it ought to be based on a results-oriented strategy. But I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the fact that you all sit down and think about what you want to do. I'm proud, I hope, that my door is always open to you to hear what you want to do. Now, we may argue about how we get there. We may ask for some compromises some places. But I still want you to be open to proposing to do something, to propose to organize yourselves and make your voices known about subjects that are important to you. Now, I've done enough preaching. I want to hear what you all have to say. I know that there is a dynamic panel coming behind me, and so I want to just say, in the words of Hazel Dukes, we are fired up. Fired up. All right, Youth and College Division, let's have a wonderful evening.
Right, I'm gonna tell, when I go back, I'm gonna text on the phone and I'm gonna tell them. Okay, everyone, I now have the esteemed privilege to introduce our moderator for tonight. You've seen him on TikTok, you saw him at the Image Awards, he won an Image Awards, and now he's moderating our panel tonight for our youth night, for you guys. Everybody stand to your feet. Y'all wasn't that loud earlier, so I'm gonna need y'all to be a little bit louder. When Mr. LaRon Hines comes out to the stage, everybody.
Okay, y'all gotta be louder than that. Yeah, y'all gotta be louder, come on. All right, what's good, everyone? I mean, like she said, I'm LaRon, and I appreciate that welcome. That was very warm and very heartwarming. But today I look forward to diving deep and direct into issues that plague today's youth, such as gun violence, racism, homophobia, sexism, and classism. The panel selected will offer uniquely educational perspectives on relevant struggles occurring throughout the country and offer insight into the significance of today's youth and achieving justice and liberty for all. Now, our first one we have is Jasmine Jones. Jasmine is a passionate activist and social justice advocate. During her college career, she held multiple leadership positions on Rowan University's campus, including president of Rowan's NAACP chapter, president of Gamma Chi Law, and Justice Club, as well as functions as the executive board member for the Black Student Union. She is also the president of the New Jersey NAACP Youth and College Division. Yes, she is. I heard you right there. She said, yes, she is. Chief of Staff for the Total Justice Project, and currently works as the legal assistant at a creditors' rights and real estate law firm. Y'all give it up for Jasmine Jones. Let me see you walk.
It'll be afterwards, I'm assuming.
All right, so next up we have Larry Malcolm Smith Jr., who is known as I Am Queens. He's a black youth activist with the roots embedded in civil rights, social justice activism within the community of Southside Jamaica, Queens. Yeah, where my Southside Jamaica Queens at? Yeah, make some noise. I don't know much about it, but I know Nicki Minaj is from there. Let's go. He began protesting at the age of 8 years old, y'all. Yes. After Sean Bell, who was murdered by the police of the police department in New York City, in Larry's hometown, who was shot 50 times. Sean Bell's story made Larry want to take a stand for holding police accountable. So being activated at such a young age, Larry learned that Larry did not choose to become an activist. Okay, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. But if anything, activism chose Larry, and he became activated at a very young age. Larry then went to spearhead into activism based on survival by advocating for marginalized communities across NYC on an expansive level. So he's doing great things, y'all. He's doing pretty big things. Y'all give it up for him. Give it up. Yes.
He's not done.
However, Larry has faced multitudes of systemic blockades in his fight for survival that have barred him from accessing and obtaining stable physical and mental environment for himself. As he continues to fight for the same systemic structures that have oppressed the BIPOC communities across our city. So y'all give it up for Larry Malcolm Smith Jr.
Woo-hoo!
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
He's getting a lot of love in the audience. There we go. All right, so our next one we have is Anaya Vines. She's a graduate from Howard University. What y'all be saying? HU? Yeah. I didn't go to Howard, but I always wanted to go to Howard, so I know that. I know a little bit, yeah. With a degree in both political science and criminology, her passion for social justice became action after her experience with her family when she experienced a senseless murder of her cousin, Delron Smalls, who was killed by an off-duty police officer in Brooklyn. She formerly served as Howard University's NAACP Education Committee chairwoman from 2019 to 2020.
Why?
And Howard University's NAACP president from 2020 to 2021. Yeah, Miss President, okay. She leads the volunteer and mentorship programs within various juvenile diversion programs in Charlotte, NC. She also is the founder of a nonprofit organization based in DC called the Live Movement, a student-led national HBCU coalition founded in June 1st of 2020. And she is also the leader of the 34-day occupation on Howard University's campus, and she founded the Blackburn Takeover. Let's go. Y'all give it up one more time for Anaya. Okay, got you. All right, to the middle chair. All right. We moving shop, y'all. Let me just. Here we go. Y'all still hear me? We good? Okay. So next, we did that one. There we go, right there. So next we have Tiana Sermons, who is the vice president of the Newark DE Youth and College Division. She's also an entertainment and film journalist with her own online show called Light Screen Action. She uses her platform to help change the lives of her generation, focusing on introducing them to career choices, mental health, wellness, and advocacy. She's doing a lot for the youth, y'all. Y'all give it up for her. I'm a firm believer of the entertainment and getting kids involved in that, so yeah, there's that. She's passionate about telling her story and other people's stories, and when she meets them, meeting new people and learning new things about them. So Tiana's ultimate goal is to host her own national talk show to further inspire kids to dream big and be successful in life. So she got goals, y'all. She got big goals. Let's go. Previously, she was the youngest reporter in the history of Time for Kids magazine and the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalist Organizations. So Tiana continues to open doors for her generation, and she's also the junior reporter for both the Junior NBA and the WNBA. Big things. Y'all give it up for Tiana. All right, so we have all the panelists here with us. So first I'm gonna ask how you guys doing?
Great.
Good. So our first question is, what is the role of a black youth in the year of 2022 to 2023 in the national fight for Black lives? What's y'all thoughts on that? What is the role?
I can start off this conversation. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I started my training earlier with this. I would love to start it with you guys as well. It's a part of the ASADA. If you could repeat after me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other and support each other.
We must love each other and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
I feel like the youth in this generation really embody that portion of the ASADA. Taking on that responsibility and that duty to fight for not just freedom, but for liberation. Also, in my experience with organizing, it's very vital for youth now to not only think of new strategies and how to combat the oppression that we have gone through for generations, but also combine that with the wisdom of those that came before us. I feel like a lot of the times we feel as though we have to choose one or the other, but we definitely need to figure out that sweet spot in between, that balance of, a fresh perspective, new strategy, social media, weaponizing that so that can protect us when we are, advocating and protesting, but also taking heed from those that have been in this fight for decades, making sure that they're involved in conversations as well.
All right. Anybody else?
I'll also say, I think me being 12 myself and being a Black youth who's in the movement and will continue to be part of the movement, I think the way that we help out is by, and I agree with everything Anaya said. I mean, just knowing that we're the ones who are newly learning about this, so we're the ones who are gonna have the most education. And even though, yes, the older generation have actually experienced it, of course, so we get to learn a lot from them, but then at the same time, we're the ones who in years to come are gonna be the ones who are taking over, becoming the next president or vice president or just the difference makers in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So the next question I have is, let's give it up for them, y'all. Give it up for them. Come on. Yes. We have some great panelists up here, y'all. So the next question I have is, what issues are most impacting the Black youth and how are you addressing them in your work?
I feel like, to tap into this question, the issues that we face as Black youth is pretty much housing injustice and voting rights. I feel that voter suppression is extremely real.
Right.
And I've been able to notice that being an HBU student at the North Carolina A&T State University, being the political action chair at the NAACP at A&T, it's given me so much wisdom, really, because within the last 8 years, there hasn't been no representation from us as young people to even make it to this convention. I was told by my advisor that last 8 years ago was the last time A&T has had representation at this convention. And I think it is a blessing that myself and my political action chair, Amber Burton, is here today. And it's just the little things like that to make the bigger picture. Because at times, we as young people feel marginalized and we feel put down. But if we continue to stand up for what we believe in and fight for what's right, I do believe that the light is pretty much towards the end of the tunnel, and we're already reaching towards that light, and we're pretty much at the finish line. And young people are still organizing, young people are still voting, young people are still putting in that work. And I honestly feel like that's the best thing I could ever say that I have learned in this movement, is being able to learn from being able to learn from my elders and pay homage to them, and to even look at it from a different perspective, saying to myself, like, wow, like the torch is passed, and I now see like how to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would also include just about, as a college student, I feel like students in general, especially in this generation, we're really overexposed to a lot of things. So being able to streamline the information that we're taking, and being able to make sure that we're checking it and we are receiving facts and not just so much, opinions and biases. So I would say just having education and being a part of NAACP allows you to have the foundation to actually learn and grow and establish yourself as a leader, as a civil rights activist. So I would definitely say just the overexposure from social media, and just how we get the whole world and we see all of the issues, the worst issues. So just making sure that we are maintaining ourselves, as well as making sure we're educating our community and our peers, and et cetera.
Definitely. I would say with my organization, the Live Movement, the foundation of it really came from students not knowing their power and not understanding that when it comes to specifically HBCU schools, so schools that are made up of majority students that look like us, Black and brown students, there are things that have been normalized in the culture that should not be normalized, and it wouldn't be tolerated at a PWI. For instance, you shouldn't clear your schedule when you have to go to financial aid. That should be something, right? No, I will type it up, because a lot of us have experienced things like that. And when it comes to like you said, housing rights, voting rights, the Blackburn takeover, the protest that was late October of last year, we're focusing on things that were at Howard, but it also exposed the similarities on different campuses. Having a tuition of $50,000 per student a year for Howard, yet you have mushrooms growing from the ceiling. You have rodents scurrying around the cafeteria floor. We're eating cheese sandwiches for dinner. That doesn't make any sense. Something's not right. There's not transparency there. So I feel like with the specific work that we do, if it really targets the issue of, students not knowing the power they have, but being like the token students. So you're gonna see us on the brochures, you're gonna see us, wearing our Howard, hoodies or sweaters or whatever, and repping the school because we love the name, but behind the mask, we're going through these day-to-day struggles as students, but we're just told it's the HBCU experience.
If I could also, just to piggyback and give the different perspective, I just graduated, a PWI. So I think a lot of times as students at a PWI, a lot of times the Black and brown students, because we are the minority, a lot of times we are left out of the conversation, or we're just unaware of a lot of the things that our white counterparts have been dealing with their whole life. So again, on the education, and again on educating our peers in our community is really important, especially reaching Black and brown students in the white communities, because a lot of times, just as important it is to reach students where they are, there are students in more affluent areas that need that same guidance and leadership, and also need to see Black mentorship and see themselves in the leadership as well.
Yes. All right, so my next question I have is that we are fighting for a lot of violence in our communities today. So what should we proactively be fighting for?
I feel like intersectionality is something that we can speak upon when we answer this question.
Right.
And activism should always be a commitment. It should never be a trend. And I also believe activism should be very versatile. And what I mean by that is that it's not just one injustice you choose to. Every injustice is calling our hearts. Why? Because young people in America are literally like living in a state of emergency, and we don't even know what they're going through, but the fact that they keep a smile on their face in their jobs, And the fact that they're actually persevering and prevailing as people of color, as black folks in America, it's amazing to see that. And I really want to touch upon like what the movement that we are all in and what it should be for. And what I mean by that is, for example, if your movement is not dedicated to those that are actually living in housing projects, those who are a part of the foster care system, those who have to work 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table, those who are on food stamps, those who are literally working so hard because they have babies, because even with the whole Roe versus Wade overturn, we know that we have a job and a duty to do. And I say that as a black man, because it's hard as it is to not see black men stand up. Yep. And I really want the narrative to be that we are here as black men. And, there's so many things that we have to jump on, and it's because it's our fight. And I say that because activism should always be an activation. You should always be activated to get into this fight. You don't have to wait for anything. Just always try to find a way to get involved. And I say that, for example, because even coming from New York City, myself and other youth activists and organizers was outside for Occupy City Hall. And we were able to come together, occupy City Hall, to make sure that we can pass a budget, because we want to invest into black communities, because a lot of the funding is going towards police, but we need that funding to go into black young communities, those that are actually doing the gun violence and prevention work, those that are actually doing the work to get children back to their parents because they've been ripped away from foster care and the child welfare system. And there's so many injustices for all of us to take upon. And the best advice I could always tell somebody is, we as the youth, we are right now and the future. And I always believe that there's always a way somebody can help. It's a matter of how badly we care to help. And I just want to end off with that. Thank you, guys.
Yes. I would say for me, being that I've been organizing in this fight for going on 7 years, my perspective and just transparency, my perspective in this movement, has been different. We've all had our own experiences with different people. We've dealt with, egos. We've dealt with people's prides, personal, political vendettas, if you will, and the list goes on and on. But right now, at my 22 years of age, I would say one thing that I would love for all of us to really fight for is true black liberation. I feel like we have had to define what freedom is different. It has to be in increments. So for instance, there was a story of a grandfather that said, what did freedom look like to you when you were younger? He said, freedom to me was being able to use the bathroom inside an actual building and not outside of an outhouse. So the perspective of what freedom looks like is different with each generation. It's progressive, it progresses, but it's always different. It's always advancing. And so for me, where I stand, black liberation is not trying to fight for a seat at the table, but it's actually creating that own table in which we control who sits there, period, as black people. You can clap it up for yourself. It's reclaiming that power for black people. It's not having to reach European standards and call that success for us as black people. Really looking at these pivotal, things that we have goals for and they're set. What is the matrix of success, and what's the foundation of that? Was that defined by us as people, or was that defined by our oppressors? And when we reach that, it's success for us. Are we still fighting to be in rooms in which we're going to be continuously uncomfortable in, but we say it's successful because now we're with the upper echelon? So what my mentality right now is when it comes to black liberation is saying what does freedom truly look like for us? And what do we need to do to not only get to that place, but maintain control so that no one is able to take that power away from us, period.
Yes. All right, well, we had a great panel. I feel like, we got a lot of stuff covered. We talked about a lot of great subjects,
Oh, that's it?
Now we're finna open up the floor for some more questions, y'all. I'm saying I'm done with my questions. I'm just saying I'm done with mine. So I had great panelists. We had a great audience. And if you guys have any questions that you guys want to ask them, now's your time. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
That was quick, y'all. Y'all got something juicy, something to spice up the conversation?
Well, if I can piggyback off of what you just said about the idea of professionalism, I think this is my first convention, so
Come on.
Okay, yeah. So this is brand new for me.
We all do this together.
Yes. Okay, we are learning. And the thing that I've realized in being in NAACP and especially being here in person with everyone this weekend is just that the standards and this idea of professionalism is, like you said, is rooted in white supremacy. It's not it's not created by us. So my ideas of professionalism, are changing. And I think that we have to have that progress. And I think we need to not be so resistant to change, and we need to want change and push for it and demand it. And on the idea of professionalism as well, I think that sometimes we get caught up in that and trying to articulate ourselves correctly and always present ourselves correctly. And sometimes we obsess over that, especially in this age of social media. So I think that just reaffirming your own beliefs for yourself is so important, and staying true to yourself and not being so caught up and worried about, the ideas that are not from ourselves.
Definitely.
I strongly agree with that. Even like with consistency upon that too, like at times it could always feel like we're on burnout. So what can we do to actually refill our cup? And I feel like as an activist and as an organizer, and I know a lot of folks in this crowd can agree with me, it is a full-time job. Although we don't get paid for it, we are always on the front lines fighting for somebody else, and it's a selfless act. And I realize that at times what we're doing is so motivational because some people don't have the time or energy to actually be a voice, but to see them, just to see other young people, on the front lines, it's like, wow, that person's my voice. That person's doing something that I couldn't do. And I honestly just want to say, like, consistency and just continuously standing up for what you believe in and never taking no for an answer, it really does get you far. And I'm really incredibly grateful to say that.
Yes. And I think that we could definitely close off with the panelists just saying something they want the audience to take away from this panel. Oh, is there a question?
Yeah, there's some questions in the audience that we're gonna answer.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Gentlemen.
I know I'm short. Hey y'all, my name is Destiny. I'm from New York. I'm from Southside Jamaica, Queens. Period. So I know it's a lot of youth here who this is their first convention. There's also a lot of new youth who have joined the NAACP, and I know you all have been doing some amazing work in the community. So I just want to know, what is your best practice when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to organizing your peers, especially when you feel as though people don't want to do something and you kind of have to force it out of them? What are some best practices that have worked for you that you think the audience could utilize?
I would definitely say for me in starting, so my college chapter, we were facing decharterment. I'm sure a lot of people were in that same boat in terms of compliance for NAACP. And in building it back up, I think the things that I've learned is setting a precedent and leading by example and making sure that you're leaning on everyone and you're not just trying to take it all on yourself, especially when you're in a leadership position or especially as a president. A lot of times people will come to you, anything NAACP related, anything Black Rowan, especially at a college campus. If you're involved on your college campus, a lot of times, especially at a PWI, you're the designated Black person to go to. So that can be draining. So making sure that you're leaning on your executive committee and incorporating fun events, we have to, reach people where they are. So making sure that you're engaging students and you're tailoring it to your peers and to things that they would enjoy, asking them what they want to do, just getting creative, because there's a lot of different things, especially with the committees. There's so many different things with music, with poetry, with sports, that will really draw a lot of crowd and get people excited about NAACP. I feel like that was the main thing, was making people want to join NAACP. Like, we was the poppin' club on campus. We made it lit. We had music, we would have food, we would have different things that we knew that we would want to enjoy. So just reiterating that is really important.
Definitely.
That's deep. I feel like my strongest strength of advocacy I would always recommend somebody is the power of voting. It always starts with that, because our biggest weapon is our vote. And if you don't believe it, sometimes I say to myself, why do Republicans try to block our vote? You know, that's like a prime example, because we continuously have to put somebody in a position of power, and it should always be us, because the power has been within us, you know? And pretty much, I also want to touch upon like housing injustice, especially within foster care. Has anybody in this room ever known about the amount of children that are in foster care that are being ripped away from their families and are aging out homeless? Can I get like a raise of hands? Okay, 3 hands. This is like an issue I really want to touch upon. Children in America are going from home to home to home, experiencing foster homes, group homes, covenant homes, children centers, men's shelters, homeless runaway youth shelters, and there is a big disconnection and injustice that is happening in the child welfare system. And I say this because children literally should not be ripped away from their families. They should actually be given to their families, and at least mental health resources and support should be involved to give to that parent. And I honestly feel like we don't have the chance to actually have these safe spaces and conversations to speak about mental health in the Black community. And a lot of it even comes from, you know, looking at our parents, looking at the Black trauma that has either been passed down or has been done to them. You know, a lot of times hurt people can hurt people, but as we begin to heal ourselves, I feel like that is where our calling and our anointing is actually happening, where we're actually able to persevere and prevail through the fight.
And really quick, I know there are more questions, but I think like one form of advocacy like I like using to get messages out is, of course, social media. I mean, social media reaches people all across the world. It can be used to, you can create whatever with it. And I think being able to use social media, being able to record videos, being able to get my message out and share different things like the NAACP experience, getting to post pictures and share about how much fun that I've been having at this event, this being my first convention, and being able to and just being able to let people know that there are these events. I mean, that's like one of the things that I love being able to do, is showing other people that there are these events, there are different things you can go to depending on what you're passionate in. So I think social media is probably the biggest thing that's helped me, especially in my career.
I would say also, on the tail end of that, it's our responsibility to meet the youth where they are. So understanding being at conventions like this is also my first one. It's a privilege to attend these. A lot of people don't have the opportunity. They are not in a place where they can attend things like this, where their parents have the ability to get them there. So it definitely is a responsibility of us to do things in which we're educating the youth in their communities, meeting them where they are, and also going beyond the youth and going to their parents and letting them know how important it is to be involved with things like this, letting them know the different opportunities, and even if they can't do it, putting ourselves in a position where we can be that liaison, be that middleman for them. Having something where, you know, maybe it's instead of having it in a building like this, having it in an actual center that's close to or in a community so that people can come. Like strategizing it like this, because this is a privilege. It's a privilege to attend things like this. So making it accessible for not just the youth, but the families alike.
Now he's been standing up here for a minute. I want to let him get his question.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's MJ. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah, we got Black folk in Utah. Yep. I'll dive into percentages now. Less than 4% of my state population is African American. I go to less than 4% of my state's population is African American. I live in one of the whitest, most Republican states in this country. At the University of Utah, where I attend, we have a black student union. We have no black Greek life. We have a handful of black faculty. It's a very tight-knit community. 2.6% of my student body population is black. Less than 0.5% of that 2.6 is there for non-athletic related reasons. I can count all my black best friends on my one hand. At a time when we see autonomy is being taken away from our sisters, how do we translate being our brother's keeper and being a sister's keeper in PWIs? How do we sustain and support one another? How do we translate our feelings of emotion into action when we make up a minority and we are a minority in a majority state where the things I choose to talk about, such as CRT, abortion, aren't things that we can ever raise within our school districts, et cetera. So going back to my main question, at a time when rights, whether it's your Miranda rights, your autonomy, your right to make the decisions over your sexual orientation and who you love are under attack, how do we sustain and support another in small states, in small spaces, predominantly white? How do we organize, how do we mobilize, and how do we effectuate change with predominantly white policymakers?
First of all,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
First, I want to give it up to you because I came from Mississippi, so I kind of understand the idea of coming from a predominantly white place. So I appreciate you for asking that question because that's a really great question. Yes.
That was a lot to take in just now, and I do want to start off by saying holding teachings and having these types of safe spaces to have, whether it's radical self-care, wellness, but really teaching our people from the roots, educating, because my thing is when Black lives are under attack, what do? We stand up and we fight back. When our lives are literally under attack right now, everybody has to stand up and fight back. I feel like at times the purpose is not just bigger than one person, but each of our parts are a very small part of the work that really is to be done. And at times, I even say to myself, the people who I go out to eat with, the people who I party with, the people who I go to study sessions with, the people who I go to watch basketball games with and football games with at North Carolina A&T, I always try to tell them the importance of fighting for each other's life, especially as a friend. And I know folks, should say why do I have to express it, or why should you have to say something? Maybe the person should already know without you having to say it. But education is key because everybody comes from different walks of life. And all of us are not perfect, but I do believe God has put us here for a reason. And where there's a will, there will always be a way. Yes. And I strongly believe in that. And honestly, brother, continue to organize, continue to mobilize, and never take no as an answer. Continue to go above and beyond. Petitions, there's so many things you can do. Registered census voter tablings. It's always a way we can help. And like I said earlier, it's a matter of how badly we care to help. And I feel like at times we cannot leave one alone by themselves. We have to bring everybody forward to get to the end.
Yes. I would also say I can come from the perspective of a PWI, a student at a PWI, because I went to HU. But what I will say is when it comes to mobilizing the community, one thing that we have to do that will affect Black students at HBCUs and PWIs alike is, and also just Black people across the nation, understanding that one Black issue is all of our issues. Yeah. For him to say, he is involved, and is a supporter of Roe v. Wade as a Black man, that's imperative because maybe it doesn't directly affect you, but Because you're black, you are involved. Because you're black, you are in it. Because you're black, it is a part of your fight. So being that there is so many issues, we tend to say, you know, being that this doesn't affect me, maybe I'll repost something, but that's all I can do. Or, you know, I'll support from afar. But we need to really redefine what mobilization looks like and understand that the fight for Black liberation, the fight for students at PWIs, it doesn't stop. We are so used to taking breaks and being okay and satisfied with temporary wins. Roe v. Wade, those that were working to overturn Roe v. Wade, they did not stop when it passed 50 or so years ago. They continue to go so that one day we wake up, we are watching the news, and it's overturned. This is not something that happened overnight. This took time, behind the scenes, decades of working in a time in which we felt like that was a win. They saw it as just a temporary block, something that they could do and work behind the scenes so that while we're sleeping, while we're, you know, taking a breather, they're working. We have no time for breathers, unfortunately. We have not had time for breathers. We have not hit a point as Black people, as Black students, to just live. We're still in survival mode.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned to live in survival mode. So we do not have that luxury to take these breaks, because I promise you, those that are working to try to oppress us, they do not take breaks.
I would also like to say something, just coming from the perspective of growing up in a predominantly white town. I think my town was 97% white in New Jersey, and then attending a PWI. I think the most important thing that I've learned is knowing what you're talking about. Being prepared. Because our white counterparts are always prepared. That's just ingrained in their culture. So we, especially as the minority on campus, and especially as Black and brown students, we have to make sure that we're educating ourselves. We have to know all of the rules of SGA, student government. We have to know all the rules of the university. We have to know all of the rules of the different departments within the university, such as the, what is I'm thinking of?
Title IX?
No, I'm thinking of just the different departments at your school. There's so many different departments that you're just not even aware of that have written into their policies different ways that you can vote people out or you can get changes made. You have to be ready. So if you want to meet with the president or you want to meet with the board of trustees, definitely the board of trustees are usually the decision makers at the school as well, and they're usually the hardest to hold meetings with and such. So if they're not trying to meet with them first, being prepared when you meet with them, and then if they deny you or they don't want to meet with you for whatever reason, you can push and say, hey, we tried to take the professional steps of having a meeting and saying this is what we want to accomplish, this is the issues that we're facing, and this is the change that we want to be made, of saying now you guys are ignoring us or you guys are keeping us out of the table, so now we're going to put pressure on you and we're going to hold you accountable and we're going to force you to live up to the promises that you're making. So definitely educating, being prepared when you're initiating those conversations, and if you have to take it to that next level, you have to take it to the next level. You have to protest, you have to do a sit-in, you have to make your voice heard and demand the change, because at the end of the day, no one else is going to do it for you. You're the students, and we as young Black leaders have to take that initiative.
Yeah.
That's
so true.
I'd like to acknowledge real quick Betty Sawyer. I stand on the shoulder of giants. And Advisor Sawyer, will you please stand up for me, Miss Betty?
Aw.
Yes.
Please do. Miss Betty has worked over 30 years to get Juneteenth made a state holiday before the Biden administration in my hometown.
Wow.
And shout out to her for making this possible for me to come to my first convention. Power to the people. Thank you.
Yeah. That was deep.
Yeah. So it looks like we got another question right here.
Greetings and humble salutations. I am Malachi Gibbs from the great state of Florida, and I am a student at the illustrious Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
Okay.
So, over the past few years, the cost of going to HBCUs have increased, and the admission requirements have gone on a lot, making it almost impossible for students who are Black and brown to get into our schools. What can we do to make sure that HBCUs are still for Black and brown students? Because that's what these schools are for, because now they're pushing out us, so where can we go if we can't go to the schools that were made for us? So what can we do to fix that problem?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I feel like, to jump on this topic and to answer this question, we really have to talk about the root of capitalism, because I feel like that is literally like our biggest enemy right now. Because if you think about it, HBCUs has always been made for us. And there's over 100 HBCUs. And I say this like every time I even walk in the hallways to go to class at A&T. There's over 100 HBCUs, and our people only know about Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, Clark Atlanta. We need to know about these other histories and illustrious and prestigious education from all of these other HBCUs. Elizabeth City State. We have Morgan State, DSU, Dillard, A&T, all of them. We really need to actually dig deep and we really have to dig deep and just really study and educate our people upon all of the other HBCUs that there are and what they have to offer. And also even we have a strong alumni that we are seeing right now that are donating to their HBCUs. And it's amazing to see that. And there's always, again, something that we always can do. And I definitely feel like we have to continue to pour into each other. And as much as we can, we also have to find our ways of not trying to get burnt out, because burnout is so fast, and we can be desensitized, we could be dehumanized, but we have to continue to just pour into each other.
So I wanted to take some time to chew on it, because there's conversations I feel like that definitely have to be had when it comes to the history and the purpose of HBCUs and how they serve a purpose in our community. The Live Movement, my nonprofit organization, I realized in 2020, going to Howard, we have a lot of HBCUs, but we're not connected, right? In history, there's always been, a documented student movement, SNCC. Anybody know SNCC? Raise your hand if you know about SNCC. Clap it up for yourself for knowing about Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, because those were the students. Those were the students that were going to different areas. They were, popping elections. They were turning campuses over, trying to make sure that youth, were being organized. So the Live Movement, what I really say is we're trying to be like a SNCC 2.0. in which we're trying to have a modernized version of that, where there is a coalition, there's a centralized foundation, because we are so used to being disconnected as Black people, and that's a systemic, strategic thing that's been put in place. But as HBCU students, there's power in numbers, there's power in strategy, and there's power in unity. So with that being said, how I try to take power in my own hands is creating a platform, and eventually NAACP Youth in College will be going on tour with them in the fall to create TLM chapters at different HBCUs. Thank you. So my purpose is to have established TLM chapters where we will be organized on different HBCU campuses. So if there's an action, if there's something in which every HBCU needs to be engaged, there are students that are on campuses that know how to organize, that have had that training, had those skills, and have the resources that can be allocated to them. And understanding that this fight, the tuition going up, Howard, it's right now $50,000 a student, a year to attend Howard. And that's, of course, that reaches back to it being a federal issue. A lot of the funding, the allocation of funds. My president, outside of him being a surgeon, being a president alone, his salary is $1 million, like annually. Yes, from just being a president, like putting that in his pocket. And a lot of people don't know that because there's not a lot of transparency with the funds and where everything's being allocated in HBCUs. So to your point in regards to what we can do, unity is a huge thing. What I'm trying to do on my part is to make sure there's unity within my organization, trying to establish those chapters. But on campus, getting those skills, reaching out to organizations that specialize in training so that you can organize on your campus as well, because there's so much power that students have. So once HBCU students connect on different campuses, I feel like we'll be able to move mountains, but we have to have that student movement grounded. Yeah.
I wanted to say as well, I don't know how far along you are in terms of eradicating or working on this issue. I would definitely just say opening up that conversation and just maybe having some sort of discussion among your peers, and then you guys go as a unit, especially among all the Black orgs, not just your own organization, but getting the Black community on campus united, and then coming as a united front and explaining exactly what you want and what you need, and just opening that conversation and see what they say, and then keep that conversation moving and set a deadline as well for them to respond or have an answer for you. But to piggyback off of what they were both saying, it is so crucial that we stay united as a people. Amen. And that we, especially even among NAACP, we need to have more communication and more unity in working together and doing things, especially now we're in a virtual age. Yeah. So we're able to, we just need to do it. And if you're having those questions and you're saying, I want to reach out, or you're thinking that you want to do it, just do it, Yeah.
Also, to wrap it up, something that I wish I would have, that I learned through experience, while doing campus organizing, make sure you only tell your administration what is necessary. There is a difference between the institution of your school and the actual student body. A lot of the times, and it's sad to say, but just through experience, your HBCU will look out for themselves. They'll look out for the optics, right? And I had to learn that because I had a lot of faith in my administration. I had a lot of faith in my president until I called on them and they weren't there. And when they did come, they came and said that if I didn't stop protesting, I would be expelled, right? Before asking what it is we're actually protesting for, they use different threats, different tactics to try to get us to stop protesting. So I would say make sure you don't get your administration involved. Things need to be low key. Like the saying, the revolution will be televised. Some of it will, but a majority of it won't. And it shouldn't be. And maybe that's something that some people need to chew on a little bit more. But some of the revolution will be televised, but a lot of it won't, and it can't. Because those that are trying to shut down whatever you're doing, those that are trying to oppress you, they'll be the ones that are going to be watching your every move, whatever you publicize, whatever you put out there. A lot of the work that you're going to do, 90% of it is going to be behind closed doors. And sometimes it might not feel like you're doing a lot of work, but trust me, the hours and hours that you're going to be putting behind closed doors, when it's brought into light, it'll go the way that it needs to go, and it'll move the revolution forward.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, just to even piggyback off of that, even though if the revolution is not televised, it will be organized. Period. And you continue to organize, because I promise you, you will see results. As much and as tired as you can be, day after day, month after month, and year after year, you will see your results happen, and it happens in like increments. You know what I mean? And I say that because me, like being an organizer on the front lines, I've organized against ACS. Because ACS is ripping children, Black children, away from their families, and we don't know what these children are going through. These children are being sexually assaulted, beat up. Some of them are actually getting money that's supposed to be towards their haircuts, their laundry, their basic necessities, and they're not even getting that kind of money. They're getting pocketed. And these are the uncomfortable conversations we have to have with elected officials and those who are in positions of power in our inadequate government institutions, because we have to continue to hold folks accountable. And don't be scared to do it. But even though the revolution won't be televised, it will be organized. And just remember that.
And if you're getting a lot of pushback, it's because you're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
It's because they don't want you to do that, because they know that if they're exposed, then they're not going to be able to profit, or they're not going to be able to selfishly boost up themselves. So if you are getting a lot of pushback, it can be a little bit just overwhelming, or it can just be a little bit discouraging, especially if you don't have as much support in the beginning. But once they see the changes that are being made, or once they see that progress, then everyone will fall behind you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for your time. And shout out to the best state advisor on this side of heaven, Miss Sandy Jones.
He is.
Love that.
Good evening, beautiful people.
Good evening.
Beautiful.
How you doing? I'm Brandy Robinson. I am representing the Trenton branch. I am a youth advocate and a mom first.
Amen.
I've experienced gun violence in my family, where my son lost his dad to gun violence. But prior to losing his dad to gun violence, his dad was a vegetable for 10 years. And for the most part, I don't want to say suffered, but we dealt with it in silence. So led us to start a anti-gun violence organization, and we're now in Trenton. And the problem that I'm coming across is mobilizing the people, not behind my cause, because this is not about me or what I went through. It's so much bigger than me. We're looking to build a village where we have safe spaces for the healing and a lot of the things that you all spoke about. I'm looking for advice on how do I get the community involved? How do I get those parents to come out? How do I get those students to really, really stand on what they believe and create change within their community? My son, fortunately, he's starting University of Maryland Eastern Shore in the fall, and I would love to see that for so many more of the young people that I come across. However, I don't see the support. I think all the youth advisors that are here, I don't see that enough. It's so minimal, and I feel like someone mentioned, I have these things coming against me, organizations not supporting. Again, I'm not looking to gain anything from this besides impact and change. Any advice for me?
Go ahead.
I feel like the best advice I can give to you is that, you know what, even though you feel that you're not being supported, most people will support you when they realize it's popular to support you. And what you're doing is the right thing. And I say this because I come from an environment which is Southside Jamaica, Queens. We have heavy gun violence. And if there's anything that I've learned is that we have to continue to really change our environment and change the way we live. Trauma feels very, very lonely. And if we continue to invest in our youth, and I really mean invest, and what I mean by that is, yes, we have to push our youth to get a bachelor's degree, a high school diploma, a master's, a doctorate. We have to push them to go to excel. But also, if they're not even involved in school, become a businessman, become an entrepreneur. Like, investing in young people is so important to me because, again, every young person has a different walk of life, but I do believe we all battle so many similarities. And again, the Lord put us here for a purpose and for a reason. And I promise you, sister, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and continue to live by that. Because forget what I do or even what we all do. So many things will come at you each and every single day, and people are hoping and praying that you are going to say the words, I give up. But the key is to never give up. Continue to prevail and persevere, and I promise you, you will be supportive and you will get that support, and I promise you it's going to happen when you become popular.
Yes. And from a strategic point of view, because I always think about like the strategy behind things. So when it comes to our generation, you have influencers. You have people in which the youth talk to, they look up to, they watch on a regular basis. So though you may have organizations that might not be supporting you, if you have conversation with youth and say, you know, who is it that you guys talk to or watch on a regular basis, reach out to some people. And if you were to potentially, you know, partner with someone that can amplify your voice, because really what you need is a platform in which the youth are already tapped into. And I'm talking strategy. I'm talking sitting down and really saying, okay, this person, this person, this person, because every the fight for Black liberation has always been the same, but it wears different masks. In every generation, there's always different ways, different strategies to combat it. And right now, we're in the era of social media, we're in the era of influencers, we're in the era of tapping a button and you have 250,000 people watching, or you have insights of a video that's stretching from New York to California. So what I would say, if you're focusing on trying to get youth engagement, then see who it is that's maybe in your community or locally, that would offer their platform for you to talk, offer some time to go on live with you. That will actually tap into a lot of the youth's attention and get them to see what it is you're talking about as well in regards to strategy.
I agree.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree. Sorry. I do agree with that. I mean, being able to get on platforms that kids are really into, I think the main thing is just making it something that the kids can relate to, something that they're interested in, something that will draw them towards it and make them see that it's a safe space. Making sure that, of course, they know about it. The thing with the platforms, making sure that it's out there, making sure that they know. There's some kids who are probably still looking for something like that they can go into and kind of just talk about whatever they went through. So it's just making sure that you get the word out. And I'm sure there are plenty of kids who would love to join. I know personally, someone in my family died of gun violence. It was more suicide, but gun violence. And it's really important for us kids to really be able to go and speak to people and really share stories, because then we feel that we're not alone, because there's other people who have gone through the same thing as well. So I think it's really just about making sure that it gets out there, making sure that kids are really into it, engaged with it, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I could give some advice as well, sorry. I'm always clearing my throat. I forget I have a mic on. I would definitely say reaching people where they're at. So I'm big on social media. I think a lot of times, especially in lieu of the civil rights movement, and when we're in these organizations that have so much behind it and so much great leadership to lean on, we have to also, on the same token, reach out to the young people and be in tune with this generation, because it's a completely different time. And kids, especially nowadays in my generation, they want to have fun, and that's their priority. So if there's nothing fun, especially because we are so overexposed, we know that there's 5 other parties going on that we could go to at the same time. Why would we want to go to this? Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that we're making kids want to show up and making kids want to be there, because that we have to feed every part of ourselves. That we're not just one monolith where it's just strictly professional, strictly education, no, you can have your fun and you can have your cake and eat it too, and you can also get your work done. So my big thing, and in my experience, has been social media. Definitely having flyers, having a PR person that's designated, because it can be overwhelming when you're doing everything. Having people designated to do different things for you, and just reaching people where they're at, and definitely just trying to get out there, getting on campus, talking to people on the college campuses or high schools, and maybe trying to speak at an assembly or some type of thing like that. And definitely social media is the big one, where you'll be able to, that's the only way we get our news, that's the only way we get our information anymore. So we have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. I'll also, and I'll pass it to you, something to say, and I know you said that you were vaguely new in the org space and doing things like that. So there's some things that, some of us have learned through experience or have learned by a mentor teaching us and things like that. When it comes to something, there's different segments in the movement. Right, so you have your subsections, and yours is gun violence and gun violence awareness, gun violence prevention. So making sure that you are consistent within the community. These kids, these families are very used to organizations going in and out of the community, inconsistencies, people going in for their own personal vendettas to feel good, do a charitable act, and then bouncing. These kids are used to that, so sometimes they're very hesitant, because they're like, okay, maybe she's here for a week or so, she's doing this, that, and the third, but then she'll leave. So being consistent, if you're gonna do or have an organization that's gonna have a presence in the community, being consistent is extremely important. Also, respecting those that have been there before you too, that's been doing the work. A lot of tension happens between organizations if you don't pay homage and respect to those that's been there. So understanding, when you go into a space, a lot of animosity will be given to you if you come in and you already think you about it. You feel me? There's people that's been put in decades, into the lives of the kids. And understanding we're not the beginning of the movement, nor will we be the end, unfortunately. But we are here to move it towards, the goal of true liberation and true freedom. So with your subsection of the movement, understanding consistency is key. Understanding before you do things and act within the community, get into communication with those that have been there before you, and learning the OGs of that community, those that people respect off jump, those that are from there. And I'm not sure if you're from there as well, but those that have been there, right? So that was me in DC. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Charlotte, so I have a mixture of both. But a lot of my organization work came in DC. So my first year when I established my organization was not to have direct actions off the strength of the expertise that I have. I had to gain respect. I had to earn respect. That's how you have to act when you're in a community that doesn't recognize you or doesn't know you. Just because you are an amazing Black woman, they don't know if you're about it for real. And so you have to prove yourself. And through that, that's communicating with the organizations that's been doing the work, that's putting your time in, that's building that foundation, having one-on-one conversations with those family members. And then they'll look at you as someone that they can depend on, and then you'll be able to make substantial change in that community.
Yeah. And lastly, I don't know if she's here. Okay, she is. Destiny, which is my big sister and my best friend. Destiny, could you stand up real quick, please? Not to put you on the spot. I've known Destiny for, by now, like over 2 years. And if there's anything I've learned about Destiny, she's always combating gun violence in the streets heavy. And what I mean by that is, is like she's always speaking to the street organization. She's always trying to find a way where we could be able to make ends meet, where we can reconcile within our communities. And she's basically organizing protests, rallies, press conferences, anything you can think of. And I definitely want to connect you to her, because literally at times what you're doing, it could feel so lonely because you may feel like you're taking on that heavy burden. But when you're doing it with a team, you're pouring back into each other's cup and you're recharging. And on top of that, you're also like literally putting everything you can to make sure that you can help a family. Like, don't just stand with the family and leave the family. Like, be with that family, because that family lost a loved one, a deceased son or a deceased daughter. Like, my whole childhood best friend had gotten shot and killed in the head at Starlight City, Brooklyn. And still to this day, like, myself and other youth activists and organizers are on the ground trying to find the killer. And if there's anything we've learned as organizers and activists, sometimes we have to look at the shooter as well as the victim, because we really have to get these guns out of these people's hands. We need to find out where they're purchasing these guns. You know what I mean? So we really have to focus on the shooter. Their story needs to be told too. You know what I mean? Like, we really have to be able to
Both ends.
See both ends of it.
Yeah, understood.
All right, so we got one last one right
and then
here.
We'll wrap it up.
And we'll wrap it on up.
Hello, my name is Colin Mitchell, Vice President for Florida State Youth and College Division. I wanted to ask a question on what's your opinion on how certain states are basically banning Black authors for their novels on history, and also how like certain schools, they are not allowed to teach Black history, because if one kid don't feel comfortable, then that they can't explain it at all. So how can youth and college division strategize and basically make a method that everybody can use to stop this situation? Because in Florida, we have a governor called DeSantis banning books and basically allowing, if one kid don't like Black history, it's like, oh, we can't teach it. So I want to know your opinions and what strategies can we do as the NAACP to focus on that situation. Because if we don't fix the history, we are bound to repeat it.
Well, I would definitely say that's a big issue for me personally. Growing up in a predominantly white town, one of my worst experiences growing up was actually in the classroom and for however long we were reading this book, To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know how raise your hands. Anyone read that book in school?
Yeah, I had to read high school.
Child. How many times does it say the N-word in there? And blatant too, like ER. And it was so, I couldn't even fathom it growing up. Like, why do we have to read this book in school? We're not even allowed to cuss in school. So how are they allowing my peers to read this book and say the N-word out loud to me? And I'm asking my teacher, like, do I have to read this? Like, can I read something else? No, it's written into the curriculum.
Mandatory.
So when we have curriculum that for decades and decades and decades has only been told one side of the story, it is our duty and it's our lawmakers and policy makers' duty to change that because it's ridiculous. It's written into the Constitution that we do not have to, as citizens of this country, especially as students in school, just like we should not be afraid of guns, I shouldn't have to worry about being constantly debarged with racial slurs or any type of slurs. That should not be included in school. So I think it's so important that we, especially as youth in college and especially as young organizers and young leaders, we need to make sure that we are bringing up the issues that we're facing in our schools, whether it be critical race theory or whether it be books like To Kill a Mockingbird being allowed in curriculum. And we have to go to the school board meetings. We have to meet with the principal, meet with the superintendent and say, this is unacceptable. I don't care what the law says. I don't care what governor is saying here. I'm a student here. I don't want to hear that. And period. And see what they say. And if you don't get the response that you want to hear, then you take it to the next level and you call them out and you hold them accountable. Because once they get embarrassed and once everyone else knows what they're doing, then they're going to make the changes that you want to see.
Yeah. And that's really deep. I do agree upon that because, you know, even when I was in foster care and I was attending an elementary school where I didn't feel safe at the time because battling bullying at the time, suicide, or anything you can think of, any type of Black trauma, I remember my teacher getting fired for teaching Black History Month. And literally, like, these are these conversations that we have to talk about. Why are people getting fired for teaching our people about Juneteenth and what Juneteenth is? I would rather us learn about Juneteenth than the 4th of July, if you really want to talk about it and what happened, you know, on that day. And I personally feel like we have to really bring these conversations to a table. And even if they're uncomfortable, we have to let it be known that we're not, you know, we're standing upon what we believe in, and we're basically holding and taking up space to the best of our ability.
And I'll keep mine short and sweet. I really want our people to not really be shocked at the things and the changes that are happening. This is not shocking, CRT. This is not a shocking thing. This is very strategic. America has very much been consistent with their motive against Black people since we've come and touched this soil. When it comes to history, they want to be very selective in things that they want to recognize, or they want to sugarcoat the extent in which they put our ancestors through, right? So with that being said, it also goes back to the point that I had earlier. Are we willing to settle or conform? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to ask them consistently for permission to give us the history that we know we've been through? And even the history that they're trying to take out from the textbooks, that's a fraction of what we have actually been through as Black people, if you want to keep it a band. That's just a minuscule of things that we have been through. So it really has to go back to the control aspect of it. We really have to be more radical in what we want to see in the form of schools, in the form of institutions, controlling those spaces. Do we want to keep sending our children to these schools, or do we as a Black community want to start opening up our own schools in which we control the curriculum? You know, these are conversations that we have to have because I think that our generation is really tired of asking permission for things. We're consistently having to ask permission to do the basic things, which is really speak our truth. Since we were little, we've had to have American and white history shoved down our throats. But now we have to ask permission for our history to be taught. Absolutely not.
Talk about that.
Absolutely not. So let's have these conversations about actually opening up these black institutions, not just HBCUs, but let's have these elementary black schools. Let's have these middle high schools that are centralized on our black students, so that we can start directly combating the school to prison pipeline and start to form that high school to HBCU pipeline. How about that?
And really quick, I want to add, I think that the other thing is, like, in places where I'll make it quick. I know that in, like, places where it's not a problem, where if one kid feels uncomfortable, then they have to stop teaching it. I think the other thing is the lack of, like, black teachers. I know throughout my entire elementary school, I only had one actually black teacher, like, in terms of grades. And then I had one black teacher this year for 6th grade, and I think just the lack of black teachers also kind of contributes to it, because of course when you have the black teachers, they're going to teach black history. They're going to be the one to, like, I know personally, I've been able to talk to about my history and really getting a chance to learn more about it. But then when you don't have those black teachers that are really able to learn about it because they are black and you're able to relate with them, I think it really just has an impact, and you kind of don't really learn it as much because no other teacher's really going to be like, oh yeah, let's just randomly teach black history. So I think I've had the privilege of having black teachers who were able to teach black history, and I think that's just one problem that we have in general, the lack of black teachers.
Yep.
All right, well, that's all we have time for today, guys. I want to thank each panelist for coming out here and dropping all this knowledge, giving us all these great gems, and just, you know, being great people and being great people in the communities and causing all this change in the world, and just continue to be great. That's all I can ask you guys to do. And thank you guys so much for coming out as well, too.
Thank y'all.
Yes. Oh, I think he's going to take a picture.
We'll take a picture.
This way? Oh, group, okay.
Power sounds like?
This unprecedented gathering of young people. Communities across this country recognize.
Double our efforts. We value people, and we will get it done. Do you know what power looks like? It's rocking the vote, mobilizing for change, fighting for equality, and lending a helping hand.
Thank you so much, God.
You know what power feels like? Claiming our rightful seat, sustaining a 112-year legacy.
I've worked for the NAACP since 1954.
Holding our adversaries accountable and starving hate at its root. You know how power moves? It's committing to our cause, leaving a lasting impact with our partners, advocating for our civil rights, raising the next generation of leaders, and driving us through another year to a more just world. Now we serve. This is power in every Black form.
Please welcome to the stage, Jonah Speller, the NC Youth and College State President.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, happy 113th NAACP National Convention. First, I would like to say greetings and thank you to the National Director of the NAACP Youth and College Division, Wisdom Cole. Thank you to the NAACP Youth and College Leadership, as well as all delegates and alternates. I am grateful to be standing before you on this beautiful day. As an active lifetime member of the NAACP for most of my life, I have experienced much and learned a multitude of lessons through being a member of this prominent organization. But most of all, I found something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life: a deep love, passion, and appreciation for youth leadership. And not just because I have had youth on my NAACP badges all my life, but because there is something uniquely special within us as young people and within us as what we are able to do and accomplish. This is especially true for us as youth and college members of the NAACP. However, oftentimes when we hear people explain why young people are valuable to an organization such as the NAACP, many times you hear that it's because of our energy, our new ideas, our courage in the face of danger. But I would personally argue a little bit differently. While young people are valuable for those reasons, those are not the things that remain with me when I strategize or work in teams with my peers. Youth are special because we have a distinct ability to see the world differently. We don't see the world for what it is, but we see it for what it can and should be. Our faith, youth leaders, is and has been a freedom faith, committed to the struggle for complete liberation and justice for all. The church of that freedom faith lies within the hearts of Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, John Lewis, Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, Tiffany Lofton, Wisdom Cole, Derek Lewis, and each of you in the room who have stood tall in the midst of the pain and wounds of a broken nation handed down to them. And it is on that foundation that we must stand tall, knowing that we too can make a difference as the trailblazers who have paved the way for us. On the courage and the critical analysis of many freedom fighters. It was because of people like them that we know that you are never too young to be a part of the movement for change. As stated by Coretta Scott King, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. The value of young people is not a novel knowledge to this country. As stated in the United States Constitution, it is the duty and obligation of all citizens to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. This country has been built off of the hope that lies within our posterity, which is defined as all future generations of young people. In other words, the youth of America has been the beacon of hope and the key to the progression of this great nation. This was recognized by our founding fathers, so much so that the posterity were and remains within the preamble of the United States Constitution. However, currently, many of our country's leaders fail to recognize and acknowledge that the actions that they're making and the decisions that they're taking are directly affecting our posterity. We, the people of the United States, should be able to look up to our country's leaders and be inspired to make change because of them. But it seems that our leaders have forgotten about the posterity in their long list of priorities. Because think about this. When representatives elect to draw maps across the state that distort the will of the people by gerrymandering and purposely put regulations and obstacles in place to exclude targeted voters from having access to the voting polls. Think about it. When young Native people are being put into cages, taken away from their parents, and even killed for trying to come to our country. A country built off of masses of diverse people escaping from their own unjust rulers and yearning for an asylum of liberty and justice for all. Think about it. When our Black brothers and sisters are being degraded, disrespected, put in jail, and even killed by those who promised to protect and serve them. Think about it. When there is an attack on our education system to whitewash American history, and very little is being done to fight it. This affects the human race. When these issues continue to be prevalent in our country, we as youth leaders need to use our vision and our mindset of a better tomorrow to rise up and make change happen. This is not just going to fade away without a radical shift in our lifestyles, making major changes and collaborating with all people, multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational. My message to each of you is to control the narrative of our stories, and as Mamie Till once said, let the world see. Do not allow those who hate progress to silence the voices of generations of oppressed people. As young leaders, let's let the world know the true history of America as we continue our intergenerational fight towards freedom for all. Thank you.
Coming to the stage, Jaden Williams, Georgia Youth and College State President.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. Good evening to our pathway leaders for the longevity of the NAACP and all of my amazing youth and college leaders and esteemed guests. I am Jaden Williams, the Georgia NAACP Youth and College Division President. I've been a part of the NAACP for over 6 years, transitioning from a youth council to a college chapter and now a state president. With success comes much responsibility. Madam Juanita Jackson, the organizer of the Youth and College Division of the NAACP, proclaimed in her statement, "Service to your people is the rent you pay for living on this earth." Advocates and freedom fighters, let's embrace her words and accept this challenge forward, and as we work for the betterment of our communities. The Youth and College Division is rooted in resilience and energized to pursue equity in justice, housing, education, representation, and social health well-being. In the midst of police brutality, unbalanced in a government, hardships growing due to a worldwide pandemic, we must continue to be steadfast and immovable. As mobilizers for change, we are strong individuals, but stronger as a division driven with a purpose. Now, there is an Achilles heel I must bring to the forefront. Inward fighting, battling amongst ourselves, holding titles and producing no results, dying senseless without a cause, leaders without training, advancing without direction, and failure to separate noise from useful information. We should not let the spirits of division be the reasons for not reaching our goals of human rights and equity for all, especially for the Black race. We have to regain access to Juanita Jackson's blueprint, reclaiming our streets, reclaiming our image, reclaiming our choice, reclaiming our voice, and reclaiming our perspectives. The tools are in our hands, social media is at our fingertips, activism is installed in our minds, and at one call, we have access to thousands of youth councils promoting health, advancement, civil, and justice for all people. Our generation now has to evaluate the work of our group to ensure the results are reflected in the community of disparities. Many ask, why do we push for what we believe? Let me answer that. We push because our lives depend on it. We push because every vote counts. We push because we decide on our representation. We push because we want laws in place that protect and defend, not strip us of our human rights. We push because we have legislators who don't want to work for the betterment of this country, the country that was built on the backs of my great-granddaddy and my great-great-grandmother. We push because we have a president who promised to cancel student debt. Well, Mr. President, the Youth and College Division is waiting for you to sign that paper. In doing some research, I've realized that 90% of the time, any type of government, company, or organization looks towards the next generation. So check this out. No longer are we bringing a seat to the table. We are now building our own. We must continue to be educated, engaged, and involved in selecting policy and decision makers that will impact our communities and generations to come. We, the people working in the back getting less than minimum wage, the people who they claim to be the minority when we are truly the majority, the people that have birthed a generation that will vote them out. So as I close, I want us to go home and build young, energized Black power. Begin to build your own table and chairs will follow, because we are not the next, we are the now. And that, my friends, is power. Thank you.
Youth in College, please welcome back to the stage Kyra Mitchell for closing remarks.
All right, I promise it's gonna be the last time y'all see me tonight, and then y'all can go eat. When I think about power, I think about us. We are the bloodline of this great association. Like Chairman Russell said earlier, the Youth in College was founded to be the militant arm of the NAACP. We cannot let our mission fade away from us. I know it isn't always easy, and we get deterred and dismayed, but we must stay fired up. Okay, just make sure y'all still awake. The theme this year is such a fitting theme considering everything that we're going through, and currently organizing around to create the America that reflects the American dream that we want to see. Because this ain't it, okay? We can't even go a full 24 hours without news of violence enacted upon us, either at the hand of police claiming they were in fear of their life, or domestic terrorists entering our places of worship in grocery stores. We keep hearing that this is our new normal, but we cannot let this be the expectation. We have to continue to let our voices be heard, continue to organize, and never back down. The summer of 2020 wasn't a fluke. We are just beginning. We are still fighting for against oppressive reproductive laws. An old white man that I have never met has more control over my body than I do. We are still fighting against inadequate education systems that are lying to our children about their history. We are fighting against elected officials that don't think Black maternal mortality rates matter. We are fighting against economic barriers that prohibit us from being able to pay our bills month to month. We have so much that is placed upon us and that we take on, so I want you to stand up and take a breath. Celebrate yourselves, take this moment to reflect and celebrate all the victories that you have and all the victories that you will have once you walk out of these doors. Like our amazing vice chair said earlier, we are not the future, we are the now. Every single one of us has the ability to change our communities and create the future that we want to see. And that starts with policy and the policy makers. We have to get these lawmakers that are not in support of us or our agenda out of office. We need to turn out this November like we have never turned out before, because there is way too much to lose. Remember that we have to play the biggest part throughout these next few months, because our voices and our votes matter. And don't ever let anybody tell you that it doesn't, because they do. The people sitting around you will be your biggest support system when times get hard. We are a family, and we have to show up for each other in spaces and support us, because nobody else is going to be there. Being at convention is a very special privilege. We are among some of the best and the brightest organizers across the country. We are the NAACP. So do not let this power and the education that you have learned so far throughout this week stay here. I need you to take it back home to your communities. I need you to make a promise that you'll take it back and you won't let it stay here. We need to show them what power looks like, because when I look around me, this right here, you're what power looks like to me. Now you need to let your communities know that too. Thank you.